Hacking is often spoken about as something inherently malicious, a shadowy act, a threat, a breach. In public discourse, it is usually reduced to just headlines about leaks, intrusions, or damage. But at its core, hacking is simply about understanding systems, how they are built, how they fail, and where power hides inside them. That is where ethical hacking becomes essential. Ethical hacking is not about breaking things for the sake of it. It is about testing boundaries responsibly, exposing weaknesses before they are exploited, and using access with restraint. In a world increasingly shaped by opaque technologies, ethical hackers play a critical role in accountability, safety, and public interest. Without ethical frameworks, hacking becomes abuse of power. Without hacking, power often goes unchecked. The challenge is not whether systems can be accessed, but who accesses them, why, and what they chose to do with that knowledge. Today, on Intelligence Spotlight, I'm joined by Baptiste Robert, an ethical hacker and investigator, and the founder of Predictor Lab. Baptiste's work sits where hacking, OSINT, and accountability meet. In this episode, we talk about how investigations actually start, how ethical lines are drawn in practice, and what people misunderstand about this kind of work. Welcome to the Intelligence Spotlight series, Baptiste.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Great to have you on the show. So before we get into the work, for people hearing your name for the first time, how do you describe what you do and why you do it, just beyond job titles?
That's a complicated question. I mean, I did a lot of things in my past, but first I started as an hacker. I would say I was more a gray hat, and then I started to be an ethical hacker, trying to contact companies, finding vulnerabilities. My specialty was to find some vulnerabilities in mobile application, especially in Android application, and I was specialized in messaging application. I worked for multiple companies, created startups too, and 5 years ago, I created a company called Predictor Lab. This is a French company, and we are expert in OSINT. So right now, I'm an entrepreneur. Let's say it like this, trying to build my company and to run my company. But I'm also an OSINT practitioner, doing a lot of open source intelligence stuff all the day, and working with a lot of data.
Great. That's a quite good combo of different skills coming together, but focused mainly on OSINT as well. So, of course, you started your whole career with a bit of curiosity in life and also technical skill that you acquired. At some point, hacking also was part of it, right? And when exactly that was, and when you started it, were you thinking about, okay, what I'm going to do, it has consequences? Do you remember the first time you felt like that?
The thing is, when I started 10 years ago, my goal was only to have fun. The goal was to find stuff hidden. Let's say it like this. I just wanted to see how my phone was working. Wanted to see how developers created their apps. Maybe if I was able to find some vulnerabilities. And there is a very special feeling when you are able to find this kind of vulnerabilities. You know that you have something in your hand that you shouldn't have. It's not supposed to be public. It's not supposed to be here. And this excitement is super special, but it's coming with a lot of responsibilities too, because you know you have something special in your hand. You have vulnerabilities. If you have bad intentions, you can exploit it. You can harm people sometimes, harm companies. So it's coming with responsibilities. And I always decided to try to contact the company to be on the good side. Maybe sometimes I didn't have any authorization to test the system, but I never exploit it in my own interest because, I mean, I do have a family. I do have my company for a long time. I was not interested to by this side, obviously. And so you know that what you are doing has some consequences. I also managed to find vulnerabilities in application owned by political figures in different countries, by application owned by government. So obviously, when you are working in this kind of thing, it will have some consequences, but you have to deal with it. And if you have a window of opportunity, I mean, you have the capability, you have the opportunity, the time to analyze this kind of application, find some stuff, report to the corresponding people. I mean, it's almost that you have to do it because you can do it, so you have to do it, but you have to do it responsibly and with good intention.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting to hear that because intention is very important at whatever we do, right? It's also, I mean, this is quite maybe not very relevant, but I just like remember how Americans argue about their guns rights, right? There are some that misuse it. There are some say, okay, it's part of our First Amendment and that we have to protect ourselves, but it's also about intention, why you own a gun, the first thing, but also why you want to hack. Either you want to make something better because you want to find vulnerabilities, or you want to make it more or exploit it more. It's all, I think, yeah, intentions is a good word there.
There is something important here also is that I don't blame young people, young hackers who are doing bad things with their
Mm,
capabilities, who are exploiting in a bad way what they are finding. Because when you are young, sometimes your situation is not good. Sometimes you need money. You try to build yourself in life. You don't know what you want to do. It's you are young, and so
yeah.
you try to build your future. And having this kind of capabilities, having this possibility to earn a lot of money very quickly can be very tempting. And so I
Mm,
don't blame these young people to do that, but it doesn't excuse their behavior.
right.
But we have to teach these young people to say, okay, guys, you have some capabilities, you know, you can walk into cybersecurity, you will earn a lot of money in cybersecurity in a legal way, and you will keep your freedom because at the end, this is what you put into the balance. This is your freedom. So you have to understand that you have something special. You are good
Yeah.
at what you're doing, but choose the other side. But for this, we need to have an intervention of someone. You need to have some people talking to this kind of young kids saying, okay, guys, come to the good side and work with us. You will earn money, a lot of money, not as much than on the illegal side, but on the long term, you will have more money.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You mentioned a very good part because if you're young, it's also hard to make a proper judgment what you're doing. So you're very easily tempted towards, okay, I need the money, or I need this. And historically, a lot of these hackers that were arrested in cyber crimes and things like that, they were very young people, like almost teenagers sometimes, which is quite interesting. Let's talk about Predictor Lab. So, of course, it didn't just appear from nowhere. You had the idea, you saw a gap somewhere, like in the market, and especially the gaps you were seeing in investigations or OSINT work that made you think that, oh, something needs to exist here. And then maybe you come up with an idea, or was it something completely different? And how
No,
you came to
at first, it started with disinformation. So I had a lot of contact with the French government in the past, and I visited the information department of the Prime Minister. And
right,
so I was able to see how this guy was working. And at the end, in order to know what is happening on social network, this guy were working with like free startups. They asked the same thing to the free startups, and they had three different results because the methodology was different, the tools were not good, and so I discussed with the staff, and they told me, okay, Baptiste, if you want to create a company, I mean, I think this is a good time in order to tackle this information, in order to work on this topic, because we don't have the tools, we don't have the APIs, we don't have the data, we don't know how to do it. So I decided to create my own company, and I decided to create a tool in order to work against disinformation. But I quickly realized that in order to work against, to tackle disinformation, you need to have data. You need to have a lot of data. In order to have a lot of data, you need to have APIs. And in order to have APIs, you need to have APIs from the big social networks, from these big platforms. And the thing is, it was already the case 5 years ago, but it's still true right now.
Right.
A lot of these platforms doesn't want to give you APIs, doesn't want to share data, because this is not in their interest, obviously, to share data and to allow researchers, to allow people to analyze the data and see what is really happening. So
Yeah.
what I decided is to create APIs, to create tools on top of this in order to be able to search into these networks, to understand all these concepts. And this is where I switched to OSINT, to open source intelligence, because
Right.
when you start to investigate, when you start to look at what is available publicly, I mean, this is OSINT. And so I focused on OSINT, investigation, creation of tools, this kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, it's quite interesting because what you mentioned about APIs, it kind of reminded me of an investigation I was doing on the Taliban's bot networks on Twitter. And I wanted to analyze how much of these accounts are following each other and to map their network, like, okay, finally, how many accounts there are. And I struggled with the APIs because Twitter or X, after when it was changed to X and bought by Elon Musk, it somehow the API was getting blocked quickly and it was changing quickly and it was hard for me to do it. And most of the information I collected was manually, which took me so much time because I couldn't do the data extraction from them through APIs to like automatically do it all together through coding and stuff like that. But yeah, the API was blocking, so I had to pay online services to do it for me because at the same time it was taking so much time. Imagine you trying to collect information about 100, but of course these bot accounts are not 100 accounts, they could be in thousands, so it's always good to find ways, and I think OSINT plays a major role in trying to build that space that everyone can use it in a way.
And there is an interesting point here. I mean, everyone is able to do OSINT, basically.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of things manually. You can search yourself the data. But what Predictor Lab is bringing to the public and to our users is to be able to do it at scale. If you want to analyze hundreds, thousands of accounts, if you want to analyze documents, thousands of documents, I mean, if you want to do it manually, you will take months. You will need a lot of people. Maybe you will miss some stuff, but if you automatize a lot of stuff using AI also in order to analyze some stuff, I mean, at the end you will save a lot of time, and you will focus the analysts, the people in charge of analyzing what is happening, will focus on their job, which is having skills, having knowledge about a country or a specific area, and be able to analyze the data they have in front of us. Our goal is to simplify the access to the data and to the relevant data.
Yeah, and I checked the website that Predictor Lab is open sourced.
Yes, I mean, we have some tools in open source, not everything, obviously, but some tools are open source, and we are trying to give back to the community because by definition, OSINT is a collaborative way to work. I mean, because we are all different, we have different skills, different knowledge. You have to work together as a team. And we need to build a community, and this is something we need to work a lot. Myself, I'm trying to do a lot of conferences, meeting a lot of different people because we need to know each other. And when you have a specific question, when you have a specific task, you always have someone who is better than you on this particular domain, and you can give him the task. So it's important to create a community, to be collaborative, and sometimes some of the tools need to be shared together.
Right, right. I definitely agree with that. It's collaboration that makes OSINT moving and is so relevant in today's world. And I guess the product you created, the predictor graph, which I think recently has these features that it could do the extraction of metadata from TikTok videos, like the preserved metadata, which is quite interesting. So how much of the work is generally when you develop this tool, how much of it is technical and how much is about actually teaching people how to think responsibly?
We at first this is a technical job,
Right.
because when you are building tools, I mean, I did almost my entire career building tools for people, and in OSINT this is the same thing. You need to understand the job in order to build the correct tool. Building a tool, building an interface, building an application. I mean, this is an application, this is coding. It's more or less complicated, but I mean, this is always the same thing. The difficult part is to understand what is the analyst's job, what are the workflow, where my tools can be inserted. I want to create tools which are useful for the analyst. And
Right.
it doesn't mean I'm coming into the room saying, okay, guys, I have the super one tool. You have to use it. It will replace everything. It's not working like that, especially in the public domain when you are working with the public sector. You need to know how people are working right now in order to insert your tools or to replace only one task of the current workflow. And so this is what we are trying to build. So this is a technical job because you have to build an interface. Sometimes you have some very technical challenges. For example, we in Predictor Graph, we have the collaborative mode. So you have the ability to share a graph and in real time, you will see the mouse of people. You will see the node moving. So you will see people working on the graph, like Google Docs, for example. So this one was quite challenging on our side, but it's at the end, the complicated part is to discuss with people, understand how they are working, see if there is some common way to work. Because I mean, if you are working in an intelligence agency, maybe you are not working the same way in a private company. So you have to discuss with a lot of people in order to understand how people are working.
It's I think your tool is both collaborative, technical, but also very useful in the OSINT community as well. And also, I think it shows transparency, like who's working on what and how. But also, there's another element, right? Because every powerful investigative tool can be misused in a way. So, especially for you, when you work on a tool, when you want to release it, right, that has these strong capabilities that could expose identities, let's say, or networks, or certain psychological behaviors of how people interact online, what kind of ethical questions do you usually ask yourself personally before making that decision? Okay, it's good to go.
It's a complicated question, and how can I say that? My job is to create tools to support a job. For example, when you are an intelligence, when you are an analyst in an intelligence agency, you have a legitimate mission given by who you are and your work, on your job. When you are a policeman, when you are a military police, you you have a legitimate mission. So
Yeah.
how they are using the tools, this is not my business if this is done when they are doing their job. Obviously, my business is to limit the abuse of my tools. And
Yeah.
this is my goal to create some limits
Hmm.
and to monitor that nobody is trying to break the limits. And this is where I have a responsibility. But inside the playground, they can do whatever they want because they have a mandate, let's say it like this.
Yeah.
They have a legitimate mission to do it, and they need to fulfill their mission. And this is interesting and for everyone. So we have an ethical committee at Predictor Lab where
Right.
all our decision has been uh, observed and approved.
Mm.
We have a chart, an ethical, some rules, some specific rules we set up at the very beginning of Predictor Lab. We also have a legal council with a lot of compliance rules and these kind of things,
Right.
because we cannot sell to everyone what we are doing, obviously, because we need to respect some rules. So, I mean, we have a very strict application
And regulation for your work.
regulation, yes. And the end, this is not that complicated, to be
Mm.
honest,
Mm.
because you know when it's good and you know when it's bad. Because
Yeah.
when you are going to, let's say, bad countries, you know that your stuff are shady. And I'm doing this job for 5 years, and
Yeah.
to be honest, I met a lot of shady people, and
Right.
it's not complicated to know that it will be shady very quickly. So in this kind of situation, it's not a problem. You can discuss with everyone. I don't have any issue to discuss with everyone, and sometimes it need to be shady for some reasons, but at the end you will know that this is good or not.
Yeah. But I think you're also pointing to tools that are not available for public, right? Because the ones that are used by the law enforcement, by the police, by the intelligence, they're usually not open source. They're
Yes.
usually useful for internal stuff, specifically like certain surveillance applications that are used by major European countries that could not be used by individuals. But when it comes to open source, right? Of course, you have all those questions already asked and like trying to balance it out. Like, okay, how much of it would be positive, and how to restrict some of the aspects that would actually harm individuals. Do you do,
Yeah, but
do you, do you make that distinction?
yes, but at the end, I'm not creating data, to be honest. And my
Mm.
work is just to facilitate the access to existing data, existing public data. So I'm
Right.
not creating data. I'm not opening some weird access to people. I'm
Mm.
just gathering data. So obviously, I'm simplifying sometimes the access to this data, and it can harm some people in a way, but we always have some limits on this. We have some internal mechanism also to audit if there is no abuse.
Right.
It's super important for us. We have a legal constraint on this too in
Mm.
France, because we are in Europe and we
Yeah.
do have a GDPR too, so we have to take
Yeah.
care to be very careful about this topic. So we really try to respect the rules point by point, and it's super important for us. But
Yeah.
yes, at the end, you will have this discussion internally always, all the time. But my point is these kind of tools is you are on top. Let's say you are on top of a mountain and you need to follow the path. It's
Right.
dangerous. You can fall,
Hmm.
but at the end, this kind of tool, which can be used in dual mode for bad and good context, are useful in our society in the current world. And I mean, the latest events are showing that we are not going into a peaceful world, obviously. And I want to create some tools for the correct people to be used in their legitimate missions, because it will be useful in our world, but I want to do it with my ethical consideration, with my values. I mean, I am French, I am European, I do have some specific roles, some specific culture. I'm also a hacker at first, so individual liberties are super important for us. And so when I'm creating tools, I want my tools to reflect that. If another company from another country is coming in Europe, is coming in France, trying to sell tools without this kind of consideration, it can be a problem. So I prefer to be the guy who are creating this kind of tools instead of company coming from a country which doesn't share the same values than us.
Yeah. So basically, you are building a car, a vehicle, but you don't decide who's driving it, but you are building it. So, and how the driver drives it, it's up to them. And I think that's out of your responsibility zone at all. But of course, there's also this element that you're also human, right? At the end of the day, I think let's talk about that, because people often focus on the outcomes of what, okay, let's say people like you do, but they rarely think about what this work does to the investigator or the person behind it, right? So if you're comfortable, if you can share, like, how has dealing with risk, pressure, and responsibility changed you personally?
It's a good question. Working in OSINT and having this job for the last 5 years changed the perspective, your perspective on the world, on the human nature too. I mean, you will see a lot of bad stuff, very bad stuff, a lot of very bad people doing stuff you don't want to see. You also understand that a lot of people on the background are working to protect civilians from this kind of bad guys, this kind of bad behavior, and this kind of stuff we don't want in our society. And so these people are doing their best in order to protect people. And let's say you try to decrypt the event of the world happening in this world differently, because you have some skills on some interpretation grid that people doesn't have. And it's not a big deal. I mean, on my side, I consider that civilians, normal people, let's say it, doesn't have to know, because it's not interesting for them. It's not their responsibility. But for people working in this domain, having this kind of responsibility, and it's like for the hacking, it's like what I was saying before, because I have the capabilities, because I'm working in this area, I can create tools in order to help the good guys to protect people. And so I have to do it. And if I can do it, I should do it. So what I'm trying to do is to build these tools, and you understand how things are working. Obviously, you are a little bit paranoid too. It's coming with the job. A lot of hacking in the past, hacking a lot of big companies or politicians. So I have a lot of stories and anecdotes. And so you learn to be more paranoid, to analyze what is happening around you when you are outside. But I mean, it's coming with the job. But on the other side, you also have a lot of benefits, a lot of advantage, access to a lot of people, a lot of places. So it's good.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm happy that you actually ended that response with a positive note. It's good.
Nothing is perfect. I mean, at the end, nothing is perfect. It's coming with consequences, as you said before. Your job is coming with a lot of consequences. You will meet a lot of people, very good people, very shady people too. But I mean, at the end, this is a cool job. You have on my side, the most interesting part is to be able to make a difference. I mean, this is my only thing, only objective, only goal. is to make a difference. And
Yeah.
I think working in OSINT, trying to build this kind of tools, trying to bring these tools in the correct hand, and this is super complicated. It can make a difference.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And that I think it's important to love what you're doing at the end of the day and know how it affects people and that you're making a difference. And I guess this sounds also very educational as well. Besides, you also share a lot of educational content, and I'm sure you're teaching other beginners how to behave and being responsible in this field. But from what you see, right, and maybe you have experienced or have witnessed, what is the most dangerous mistake beginners make when they enter ethical hacking or the realm of OSINT?
So for OSINT, I think people don't understand, don't know the definition of intelligence.
Right.
That's the first thing. They don't know the difference between information and intelligence.
And how do you define it?
So intelligence is a decision, is an information which you will be able to base the decision on on this intelligence, on this information. An information can be a raw data, can be a raw information. It's not actionable. You will not be able to work on to base a decision on it. And so our work is to create an information with high certainty. So we are working on probability. Our
Right.
goal is to bring the correct information to the leader saying, okay, there is a high probability that this
Mm.
thing will happen. And so this is the only job. So OSINT is not about uh, data extraction. This is a technical job. And I mean, I don't really care about data extraction, but at the end, it can change a lot. The way to extract data, the sources will change, the tools will change. It's not about data extraction. This is not a technical job. Be able to analyze data is the most interesting part of the job. And in order to be able to do an analysis, you need to be you need to know how to write report. And
Mm.
if you want to start in OSINT, learn to write in English, learn to write in French, and you have to also have a deep knowledge of area or your field of expertise. I mean, if you want to be an expert on guns, you need to know everything on guns and not
Mhm.
just free stuff you saw on Twitter and whatever. So you need really to be a deep expert on your topic. So OSINT is not data extraction. Learn on how to analyze, to make conclusion, train yourself to write report. Write report is super important because this is the output of our work. And regarding ethical hacking,
Mhm.
it's a little bit different. You will have a lot of power in your hand. Let's say it like this. Um, you have to be nice with people. Don't
Mhm.
It's not because you found the vulnerabilities in an application that you are better than the guy who made the mistake at first. Talk nicely, be
Mhm.
polite, don't be stupid, try to help and try to find the correct people in the organization. This is super complicated, but
Yeah.
take care of yourself and just be nice and it will be okay.
That's I actually enjoyed what you described. To be nice, to enjoy what you're working, and also to understand the difference between, okay, if there's one OSINT part and then there's the intelligence part, and sometimes people do mix that up a lot. I think it's important. I want to pose one last question, and that could be about the future, because we're currently living in a time that things change so quickly with AI, with geopolitics, with how even Europe as a kind of, I have this discussion with some friends who are also have some expertise that we're we're already in a war. a hidden war in Europe between its rivals or enemies. It no longer feels like the war and during the Cold War and the 90s or in or the Second World War, but there is a war happening, and that's through cyber crimes, cybersecurity, through sabotages, through even shutting down power grids and things like that. And hacking plays a huge role in that. Just recently, I watched the press statement by the MI6 chief. And one of the things I analyzed was their main focus is on cybersecurity and cyberspace. And I think this reflects across other European countries as well, including France, Germany. How do you see the future, let's say till 2030? In which direction are we going? Are we able to train more cyber soldiers? I would put it in that way, because we need soldiers if the cyber war is raging. Do we need more cyber soldiers? And if yes, what's the advice you have for younger generation who are entering in this field?
I think we need more cyber experts, not necessarily a soldier, to be honest. I think countries, this is not necessarily the responsibility of the countries to have a lot of cyber experts directly in the military. What I mean by this is we need a lot of collaboration between the private sector and the public sector.
Mm-hmm.
Because the private sector companies, private companies will have capabilities and innovation to have the capability to innovate very quickly.
Right.
They have the capability to move fast. And in cybersecurity, you need to move fast because things are evolving very quickly. You need to do some stuff without all the administrative tasks. And so I think countries need to create a lot of collaboration with private companies, but on the other side, they need to enforce their cyber capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so they need more soldiers. Yes, they need more cyber experts in their military. They need to have more tools, better tools. They need to train and to know how to use them, in the field. So yes, we need more people in cyber, but we need more experts. A lot of people are doing OSINT. A lot of civilians are doing OSINT, but they are doing amateur OSINT, let's say like this, because they don't have the methodology. But at the end, sometimes it's good, and they are bringing some very cool results. What we need is to create professional. We need to have more OSINT professionals. We need to have people who are doing that as a job. And so we need to have official training. And this is where the military can be useful because they are very good at training people to do one job. So yes, we need more people. We need more skilled people, but we also need a government working with private company, buying tools, giving money in order to accelerate the innovation in this space. If we don't have any money, at the end, cyber is money. So if you don't have any money, you don't have any cyber. You don't have this expert, you don't have the tools, you don't have the data. So we need to have more money, more tools, more innovation. People need to have the ecosystem in order people need to have this ecosystem in order to bring this innovation. So we need to find the correct talent and put these guys in a room and let them work.
Right. Well, let's work on that. And working together collaboratively, I think is the way forward. Baptiste, thank you so much for being at the Intelligence Spotlight series. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you for having me. Merci.